So I guess we can start. Is it?
Yes, okay.
Oh, very good afternoon to everyone. And it's a
Some people from NMF have joined, as you can see.
yes,
So,
yes, sir.
yes. Okay.
It is a pleasure to welcome everyone on the sixth day of this ocean literacy course. Ocean Literacy: Know Your Planet Beyond Land. So before we begin with today's session, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the start of the seventh batch of this IOI Ocean Literacy course from 17th of March. And till date, for the last week, we have covered a wide range of crucial topics, which included the ocean in simple terms, living with the ocean, the strategic importance of ocean, concepts of sustainability, and we also looked for the ocean biodiversity of India. Now, building on these learnings, today's session addresses a pressing and complex issue, that's threats to national security arising from the sea. And for this, we are honored to have with us Dr. Captain K. Agnihotri, sir. Sir has been part of this ocean literacy course, and it has always been pleasure hearing and learning from him. So I'll take this privilege to introduce to you all Captain Kamlesh Kumar Agnihotri, sir, is a senior fellow at the National Maritime Foundation. Prior to this assignment, he was a senior fellow at the Center of Joint Warfare Studies in New Delhi. His specialized field of work for the last 15 years has been on the Chinese Defense Forces, particularly the Chinese Navy. Currently, Sir's area of study includes the Chinese maritime and the high technology issues, Indian ocean security matters, and the complex dynamics in the border Indo Pacific region. Sir has been a prolonged tenure at NMF earlier too, during which he built a specialized knowledge based on China. His in depth knowledge of China related security matters enabled him to publish 5 books and author several research articles in various think tank journals. His notable 2 books are Leveraging High Technology Developments in Chinese Military and Maritime Domains, Impact on the Indian Ocean Region Security, which came in 2021, and the Strategic Directions of the Chinese Navy, Capability and the Intent Assessment in 2015. He is a qualified remote sensing analyst and satellite imagery interpreter. Sir has also acquired advanced diploma in Chinese language to complement his scholarly research work. So welcome to you and thank you for consenting to be the part of this course. Without further ado, I'll request Agnihotri sir to begin with the session. Sir, the floor is yours. So you can unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Sneha, and thank you, TPC, for giving this opportunity to me. I'll just share the presentation and then we will start straight away. So, can you give me the sharing rights?
Yes, sir, you're permitted.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
I can't see my own sharing screen now.
We can share sharing screen. You can go on the slides mode. We can see the presentation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, has it gone into slide mode?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah.
So okay, thank you, Sneha, again once again, and thank you to Dr. Vinita, who has given me this opportunity to be associated with TPC for a reasonably long time. I think this is the fourth iteration of the ocean literacy course that I'll be participating in. And it is heartening to know that you have given me a lecture tomorrow also on maritime connectivity. So tomorrow we will take as of tomorrow. So I will start my presentation with regard to the topic for today. That is a threat to India's national security arising from the sea. Basically, it is the maritime security threats facing India and what India can do about it. Now, prior to starting the presentation per se, uh, one has to look at a little bit of a geography because everything is situated, the geopolitics is situated and maritime security is situated in the geography itself. So this is the India's proximate seas, and India's proximate seas, as the definition goes of the Indo-Pacific region, is extends from the east coast of Africa to the western shores of Americas. Now, there are different interpretations by different countries with regard to the geographical extent of the Indo-Pacific region. But notwithstanding the definitions of other countries, India is very clear that the geographical extent of the Indo-Pacific extends from the eastern coast of Africa all the way till the Americas. So now, further going to another map, this shows the India's primary areas of interest. Now, India's primary areas of interest have been clearly laid down in the India's maritime doctrine, that is IMD 2009. The copy is available online, and the primary areas of interest mainly consist of the sea areas of the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the larger Indian Ocean to the south. Basically, all the areas in which, if something happens, then directly the India's national security, economic security, as well as the security and well-being of the people of India will be affected. We will go to it later. Before that, there is another area called the secondary areas of India's maritime interest. Again, it is laid down in the India's maritime doctrine of 2009, and it goes all the way to South China Sea and up to the Central Pacific. And if you see the previous map, you will realize that a large part of Indo-Pacific is congruent with what is India's primary and secondary areas of interest. In fact, the secondary area of interest in case of India goes right up to the Gulf of Guinea, because a lot of oil import for India is also coming from that area. Now coming a little more specifically to the India's primary areas of interest, because India's primary areas of interest, as I said, are into the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and the adjoining Indian Ocean to the south. And this is the main area that one must look at protecting, and also being a maritime player of a certain influence, because if you are able to influence the areas of your adjacent seas, then you are able to ensure your maritime security, and also the economic security, which is contingent on the maritime medium being secure. So I will take 2 minutes on this particular slide. This primary area of interest covers the various choke points. If you come from the left side, there is a Suez Canal. Then down the Red Sea, there is the Bab el Mandeb. Then there is the Persian Gulf entry and exit to it, Strait of Hormuz. Then there is a notional choke point below Sri Lanka. One choke point which is not seen here is right down the Cape of Good Hope. But that is again a notional choke point. I will explain why I'm calling it notional choke point. Then there is a six-degree channel, which is between the Andaman Nicobar and the Aceh Peninsula of Indonesia. Then there is a Malacca Strait. Further to the east is the Sunda Strait, and yet to the east is the Lombok Strait. So if you see the peculiar geography of Indian Ocean, one cannot just get in or get out very freely. They have to come through one of the choke points, and they can exit only through either of these choke points. The notional choke point that I talked about is in the merchant navy circles, the profit is the main motive. If profit being the main motive, then the ships tend to take the shortest route so that the minimum oil and fuel gets burnt to move that ship. So if a ship takes a longer detour south of Sri Lanka, it has to, first of all, it will have to take more time to navigate to its destination, and consequently more fuel will be burned. Similarly, in case of when you are rounding Cape of Good Hope, if you are going well south of Cape of Good Hope, then you are taking more time to reach your destination, as also burning more fuel. So that's why it is called notional choke point, in the sense that for optimum utilization of fuel with regard to the transportation of goods, commodities, and energy that the ships are transporting, these can be dubbed as choke points of certain kind, which are notional. Have a look at the area of the Indian Ocean, 73.6 million square kilometers. And just to put it in context, India area of the Arabian Sea itself is 3.8 million square kilometers. Quite a lot of trade passes through it. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about connectivity issues. So we will be looking at these figures in a little bit more of detail tomorrow. So now we come to the subject per se, and the subject is the maritime security issues. We have a maritime thinker of repute, Dr. K.M. Panikar. He's written a book on the India and the Indian Ocean region, and India and the Indian Ocean. And I would start with this quote: "The vital feature which differentiates the Indian Ocean from the Atlantic and the Pacific." Sneha, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
okay,
sir.
so
Yes, sir.
okay. The vital feature which differentiates Indian Ocean from the Atlantic and the Pacific is not the two sides, but the subcontinent of India, which juts far into the sea for 1,000 miles to its tapering end at the Cape Comorin, that is Kanyakumari. It is the geographical position of India that changes the character of the Indian Ocean. Now, this is very important and apt quote. That is why I am starting with this. So, even though India had paid a very heavy price for its proverbial sea blindness in the past, despite holding a naturally endowed prominent position in the Indian Ocean, as aptly summarized by Sardar K.M. Panikar's quote, it has now recognized its rightful place in the geopolitical affairs of the region and is ready to play its legitimate part as the first responder and the preferred security partner. So the main keywords here are first responder and the preferred security partner. But there are obviously challenges to contend with. If things were that easy, then there would be no discussion on maritime security issues. So what are the challenges to India's maritime security? I would classify them into two parts, the traditional and the non-traditional. My presentation explores traditional and non-traditional maritime challenges that face India. Thereafter, the ways and means and available options for their mitigation will be discussed in brief. Contemporary India's maritime security has traditionally been threatened on account of the proactive inimical agenda of mainly two countries. No prizes for guessing. It's all there written here: Pakistan and China, and the related activities of their maritime entities in the northern Indian Ocean in particular. Against this backdrop, two security scenarios could possibly emerge for India. The first would be on the account of Pakistan's concept of operations for the Arabian Sea, duly supported either overtly or covertly by China. And the other scenario, of course, is the uh, presence of Chinese maritime assets in the Indian Ocean region. And if they want to be aggressive here, what they can do. The non-traditional challenges facing India can be classified as those state-supported acts of the non-state rogue elements, man-made maritime security challenges, and natural calamities and disasters. We will look at each of them in brief. So this graphic shows all the threats arising in, from, and through the seas. And what we are going to initially look at is this traditional threats. That's what we are going to look at it for some time, and then we'll come to the non-traditional threats. So traditional threats from Pakistan. Pakistan released its first ever maritime doctrine titled Preserving Freedom of the Seas in December 2018, wherein it considers the North Arabian Sea as its primary area of interest and the broader Western Indian Ocean as its extension. This doctrine assesses that the nuclearization of the Indian Ocean by the adversary, and for them adversary is of course India, has raised stakes in the region. The Pakistan Navy, in order to ensure suitable deterrence against this supposed enemy's intent, now he changes the word from adversary to enemy. I mean, now there is a very clear connotation. So Pakistan Navy advocates an approach of provocative and flexible mobility using sea space. The Pakistan Navy approaches also include hit first with maximum effect and minimum application of force. These are doctrines are written as the desired end state. Doesn't mean that Pakistan will be able to do exactly this thing, but the language gives I would say, a peep into their intentions. So Pakistan's maritime doctrine advocates the use of submarines to cause high intensity diversion and disruption of enemy's sea lines of communication and dominate the war theater. So towards that, what they are trying to do is the UN class submarines fitted with the air independent propulsion, 8 of which are being imported from China, would certainly be the prime platforms of choice for Pakistan if they want to achieve this. It is, however, obvious that the Pakistan Navy, with its current level of capabilities, would not be able to undertake the overarching tasks as it envisions in its doctrine. Thus, the only way to meet its doctrinal guidance of hitting first with the maximum effect and minimum application of force, as they say, is by allying with China. This scenario is therefore built on the premise that Pakistan will execute this concept of operations in its area of maritime interest with covert and possibly indirect support being provided by China. This will enable the Pakistan Navy to benefit operationally from Chinese high technology support infrastructure. For instance, with access to the restricted positioning signal from the Beidou satellite navigation system. It's the equivalent of GPS which China has. The Pakistan Navy ships and submarines would be able to carry out precision targeting of enemy assets and also interdict the Indian sea lines of communication in Pakistan's near coast areas. So obviously the discussion can be much longer, but I would stop at that because the presentation is pretty long. So then what are the traditional challenges from China? I'll come to that. The Chinese Navy's envisioned role of conducting international cooperation. They always start with sweet words. Conducting international cooperation in distant waters, as first articulated in their defense white paper of 2008, has by 2015 progressively expanded to protecting its strategic slocks and overseas interests. And by 2019, it has come to far seas protection. So towards this latter objective, China has been prioritizing the high technology driven developments of its naval hardware, revising its operational plans, and its accelerated pace of warship building continues to provide numerical superiority and capacity accretion to the PLA Navy. Chinese shipyards have been constructing between 13 to 17 ships annually since 2013. If this trend continues, the PLA Navy with about 315 odd blue water capable ships is projected to become the world's largest navy by 2035. So there is a difference between the blue water capable ships and the warships in general, because warships can also be smaller ships, patrol boats, etc. And if we take the number of patrol boats and all other blue water capable ships, China is already the largest in terms of number of ships. China is already the largest navy in the world. But the blue water capable ships are the ones which actually hold capabilities to fight in far seas and fight away from their shores. So that is why we are looking at specifically at the blue water capable ships. So how much of this force can be projected into the Indian Ocean region? If they are going to have, say, 305 blue water capable ships by 2035, how many ships can be sent to in the Indian Ocean region? Obviously, all can't be sent because they have their geopolitical issues and limitations there also. So I have made another graphic here. If you see the blue water capable ships, that is aircraft carrier, destroyers, frigates, corvettes, amphibious ships, submarines, conventional and nuclear submarines, and tankers. Tankers are the replacement ships. If suppose they have 251 ships as of now or this year, this figure is never correct to the exact number because various sources give various figures. So take it as a ballpark figure of 250, 251 blue water ships. And generally in the Navy, the going philosophy is that 2/3 of the ships are supposed to be ready for operations and 1/3 are supposed to be getting repaired, refitted, and getting ready for operations. So if you take 2/3 of number of ships, that makes it around 169 ships available for operations. And even if you, if Chinese can spare 30% of their ships, say for the Indian Ocean region, which is a pretty, yes, largest kind of a portion, that would come to around 52 ships, more than 50 ships. But forget about this. Just talk about just 10%. 10% of suppose the operational ships, that comes to around 16 to 17 ships. So we will, as of now, this is peacetime. There is no great tension. Yes, there were tensions with China some time back. But now we are looking at burying the hatchet and trying to be good to each other. So in peacetime, generally 15 to 16 ships one can see in the Indian Ocean region. And this is what we are actually seeing. A pattern of this kind is actually quite apparent. So if we see over last 10 years or so, an average of 12 to 14 naval and civil support ships. When I say civil support ships, they are supporting the naval operations only in Indian Ocean at any time. So there is an anti-piracy escort mission going on since 2008, and the 47th Task Force is in station. This graphic just shows for how long each task force has remained in the area. And if you see average deployment duration for each task force is more than 6.5 months. So that's a huge achievement actually, because if they are sending out their ships, 3 of their ships away from the base port for more than 6.5 months, and without any breakdowns and without any at least apparent breakdowns or known issues and limitations, then that's a huge achievement by any yardstick. And then there were the continual deployments of submarines since 2013 till 2017. They used to tell us that they are going to send submarines to the Indian Ocean. Now they have stopped telling us, but we know the submarines by their very nature of deployment characteristics would certainly be getting deployed. And it is just up to us to find out and try and track and identify that there are Chinese submarines going around in the area. There are enough media reports to that effect. But we are only knowing about the firm things till 2017, when they used to tell us and the Americans officially that they are deploying a submarine into the Indian Ocean. Then they are carrying out various exercises by Pakistan. The last Sea Guardian exercise was conducted, I think, in November last year. And Aman series of exercises are held every 2 years. Then they are having joint sea exercises with Russia and the Mediterranean and the Baltic Sea. Interestingly, the Russian east coast is in the Western Pacific side. Vladivostok, etc. So they can have exercises there. But in addition to having the exercises in Vladivostok, they also want to have exercises in the Baltic Sea coast of Russia. So how do they reach Baltic Sea or Mediterranean Sea? Obviously through the Indian Ocean. So the major part of their passage is while they are going to Mediterranean or Baltic Sea for exercises with Russia is spent in the Indian Ocean region. Then there are recent joint exercises with Russia and South Africa, that is off South Africa. Then with Russia and Iran in the Gulf of Oman. This exercise was held in January itself when the issues were very, very hot and issues continue to be hot. So China is giving clear messages and Russia, as you can see, it is more like a partner now to them rather than being an superior power or even an equal. So wherever China is there, Russia is in tow there. Then there are symbolic exercises just to show that they are doing exercises in the Indian Ocean, that is near the Java Island. And all of you or some of you must have read in the papers that they have carried out exercises. First, they have gone around Australia from the Pacific side and towards the Indian Ocean side. And they have carried out exercises between New Zealand and Australia in the Tasman Sea. This was, I think, 2 weeks back, 2 to 3 weeks back. They have a Djibouti military base. And the high point of their deployment in the Indian Ocean, we particularly noticed, was in a quarter, 3 month period of June to August 2017. Look at this, total 19 ships. What is APEF is Anti-Piracy Escort Force. 26 Anti-Piracy Escort Force had gone after their deployment to Mediterranean and was returning through Indian Ocean. 27th was deployed off the Gulf of Aden. Djibouti support group had 2 ships there. At that moment, the Peace Ark hospital ship was returning from around Africa. There was a Chinese survey ship here. And there was a joint sea exercise group, which was coming back from Russia. As I told, they were having an exercise in the Baltic Sea. And at that moment, they were returning from the exercise into Baltic Sea back to their home country through the Indian Ocean. Then there was One Belt, One Road group of 3 ships. China, when Xi Jinping started this concept of One Belt, One Road or BRI, it wanted to prove a point that maritime connectivity will be a big plus point. So they sent a 3-ship group to retrace the route till whatever was the maritime Silk Road route. Of course, there were issues. India did not allow them to touch our ports because we do not identify with their One Belt, One Road concept. One of the prime reasons we don't identify is that one part of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which is part of the bigger One Belt, One Road, crosses our Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and we consider that as our territory, and so we do not identify, and we are not joined the One Belt, One Road initiative of China. And then there were a submarine and its support ship, and there was an intelligence collection ship, a total of 19 ships. So while 12 to 14 ships are generally there, but this was the high point that I wanted to talk about. But what happens is that the occasions for fighting by warships are few and far between. Just because they are warships, they cannot go around firing and doing all kinds of things. But they are there, they have to show their presence. So what do? So they engage in military operations other than war. They do joint anti-piracy drills they used to do with US, NATO and EU ships. Now the ships are not very keen to do exercises, but all the same, these ships are there. They visit various littoral countries in the Indian Ocean region after anti-piracy deployment. So they are in no great hurry to go back. And this slide illustrates this. I started marking, I've been following this for a long time. I started marking as to after anti-piracy deployment, where all do they go? They don't head home straight. They go all over the place, including into the Mediterranean and Baltic Sea and Black Sea, because that time Black Sea was open. There was no Russia-Ukraine conflict going on at that moment. And after some time, the whole picture became so dense that I stopped really marking. But whatever I have marked, this gives you a general idea of the Chinese ships, generally what happens, if you have been sent for a overseas deployment, you want to head home at the earliest because you have been away from your families for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. But they have been ordered not to be in great hurry. There are plans. They go for various exercises. And when things were hunky-dory with us, they used to also touch our ports. They used to come to Cochin. They have also come to Visakhapatnam. And so they go all over the place. The point that I am making is that because of this propensity of the Chinese naval ships to not go back in a hurry, they are here in the Indian Ocean for a very, very long time. 3 ships are deployed for 6 months and 3 ships are hanging around doing nothing and just trying to increase their influence with other countries in the littoral. So then, because they are there, when the contingency arises, they have evacuated their people from Libya, Yemen, Sudan. Even we have done it. But for us, it is our primary area of interest, as I showed you in the beginning slide. But for them, they are operating 4,500 nautical miles away from their coast. Extensive search for the missing Malaysian airliner 370. They wanted to search in the Andaman Sea also. But then we told them that Andaman Sea area is not really to be searched by you. And whatever support is required with regard to searching for the MS-370, we will do it for you. Then there were the landing ships and the landing platform to support Djibouti naval base construction. Then their training ships have been going all around the place, including they have been coming to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh recently. Their Peace Ark hospital ship has been on Mission Harmony. So there are all warships, but they are engaging in military activities other than war and getting familiarized in the process. So this is just to give you a peek into what its Peace Ark hospital ship does. In 2017, the Peace Ark hospital ship had come from China, and from Colombo onwards, it went all around Africa, as the track shows. And in 2017, 2024, what did they do? They had another mission, Harmony 2024. This got completed in January of this year, and they did it the other way around. First, they went anti-clockwise. Now they went clockwise this time. They hit Seychelles first, and then they went to Tanzania, Madagascar, Mozambique, South Africa. It's all written there. And they exited via Sri Lanka and Singapore. And exactly the same thing. And these were the ports in common. If you see Tanzania, Mozambique, Angola, Congo, Djibouti, Sri Lanka, this itself tells a story with regard to where their influence has increased and where they are further trying to increase their influence. If you see the area of Angola, Gabon, and the Congo, that is the area of Gulf of Guinea, where a lot of new, I would say, piracy-related issues are coming up, and China and India both have interest with regard to the oil that is coming from Angola and from various other Nigeria and various other West African countries. So we are not talking about what India is doing, but with regard to what Chinese, I would say, threat is there, because they are present for various actions and activities here. So further, some more interests of China in the Indian Ocean region, and I think I would show the picture that will show you more things. PLA Navy presence to safeguard overseas maritime and economic interests. Now you see, Sri Lanka had called this ship Shriyan 6 survey vessel to come and visit. And where all did Shriyan 6 go? Look at the right graphic. Sri Lanka is here, but it went right till east of Chennai. Once you call, it's like calling a thug or a robber to your house and say, just go and do recce of the neighbor's house also. So he goes well into the Bay of Bengal, comes down, and then goes to Sri Lanka. I mean, this pattern of the ship's deployment is very clear. And that is why India has been off and on quite angry with Sri Lanka. They try and assuage our emotions with regard to China and our concerns. But all the same, their activities do not inspire any great confidence. There means, I would say, the Sri Lankan activities with regard to inviting the Chinese ships. And what happened in Maldives? The Xiangyang Hong research ship The moment the new President Moizu took power, he anyway took power on the campaign of India out. First thing he did was signed 20 agreements with China. One of the agreements was that Xiangyang Hong research ship will come and deploy in Maldives. Now, geography you are all aware of. The Lakshadweep Islands are having natural extension as Maldives. So they are all, this ship is also was operating for 6 months in the vicinity of our waters. The Yuan space telemetry ship, every time India wants to carry out a missile launch in the Bay of Bengal, test or a rocket launch or a satellite launch, we have to give a notice to the mariners and to the airmen saying that please be careful, a missile will be launched or a rocket will be launched carrying a satellite. So everybody, the whole world gets this message, and we are supposed to give the message 7 to 15 days in advance. We give that message, and this Yuan Wang space telemetry ship, which can track space bodies, missiles, as well as rockets, as well as satellites in space, is promptly sent here. Twice we had to cancel our space launch because this Yuan Wang space telemetry ship happened to land up in the Bay of Bengal at the exact moment of our launch. So these are the issues which are troubling us quite a bit. And then China has got a authorized, I would say legally allocated 10,000 square kilometers of sea area for prospecting south of Madagascar. And it keeps sending its deep sea research vessels along with its manned and unmanned submersibles to this area, and obviously they cannot reach that area. They have to traverse the Indian Ocean and the India's primary areas of maritime interest when they go there. So rather than reading out this particular thing, I thought I'll explain it to you on the slide itself. So what are the implications for India? By now you would have figured out the most of the implications, but just to put it out in in serial numbers, I put it here. Crisscrossing PLA Navy ships in critical Indian maritime area, that is primary area. Obviously, they are going to restrict our operations, our Navy's operations. They are going to be monitoring our Navy's operations. Interception of strategic communication in Bay of Bengal. This is when we are trying to launch our missiles or rockets carrying satellites. The communications are spread over a large area. And if there is a ship like Yuan Wang, then everything of India, all strategic communication gets monitored by them. Indian missile and space program can be monitored, as I told you. Every time ships come here, they try and do the hydrological survey of hydrological conditions underwater. Because if you know the differences at various points at various points in sea and at various weather patterns and various climates, say winter, summer, and other seasons, then you can know and what are these hydrological conditions. They are temperature, density, and salinity profile. Now, if this profile is regularly collected over a large area and over varying seasons, then it can be put into a big data analysis thing, and then a clear picture can emerge as to where their submarine can hide. So these data is very much important in the anti-submarine operations or submarine operations, I would say. Anti-submarine operations, we'll have to mount for them. And every time they come here, they'll obviously get familiarized with the area. If I have to go tomorrow to say Bangalore and I have no idea about Bangalore, then I look up the Google map, or instead of going to for the job first, I go for a recce, 1 or 2 days of tourism, and then when I go for the exact job, I know where to land up exactly. So in peacetime, they are trying to familiarize themselves with various ports, various routes, various navigation peculiarities of operating in the far seas in the Indian Ocean region. And we can see that they are trying to extend their familiarity umbrella more and more. As far as India was concerned, we used to always allow their ships to come to Cochin. But then they insisted that we have been to Cochin many times, please allow us to come to Visakhapatnam. Now, Visakhapatnam does not lie on the shortest route between China and India. Generally, you go around Sri Lanka and then head to Malacca Strait and go back. But the very fact that they wanted to come to Visakhapatnam when the things were quite okay, and we had no reason to we gave it a thought, and then we said, okay, there's no harm in sending us. But those of you who know Visakhapatnam, tomorrow I'm going to cover how peculiarity of Visakhapatnam port. They will know exactly the navigational constraints. If they enter the Visakhapatnam, how narrow is the channel? What can be done to the channel to block everything? So these are the issues. The PLA Navy presence in the vicinity, as I told you, they are just hanging around. If they are doing exercises with Aman and Sea Guardian type exercises with the most recent one is November 2024. Actually, there is an error there. Uh, with Pakistan, obviously, they are not doing anything great friendly exercises with regard to India. And anti-piracy patrols, I think we have spoken enough. 6.5 months average time on station. And 46th task force since 2008 is deployed there. Some bigger, broader implications. The naval bases in the Indian Ocean region will increase PLA Navy's operational effectiveness. Obviously, it is a no-brainer. Continual presence of PLA Navy ships and submarines. Every ship and submarine of any country, when it goes for deployment, far seas deployment, it loads up with full ammunition, all missiles. It's called war complement. It loads up its full war complement. So if we see the number of ships and submarines, at least 3 ships are there at all times. 3 ships are deployed and 3 ships which are just hanging around. As I said, no hurry to go back. 6 ships are there with the basic missiles, anti-surface missiles, anti-ship, that is missiles, air defense armament, guns, etc. So certain capabilities are pre-existing in Indian Ocean region. Nobody is using it. But there is always a warship is meant for war. So there is always a connotation that the ship is loaded with this kind of ordnance, ammunition, and weapon systems, and it can always use it when it is required. So it is a threat in being. And they are making carriers. Third carrier is already more or less ready. It can be commissioned any day. Fourth carrier, we have heard that is being made. They have intentions to make 6 aircraft carriers. And as and when they have more aircraft carriers, one of them will surely come here along with its complete escort force and a nuclear submarine in tow. And then the threat dynamics in the Indian Ocean region will undergo a total change. China-Pak collusion or collaboration, we have just spoken about, very much feasible. And Indian sea lines of communication, their security will be threatened. When you say sea lines of communication, to put it in layman terms, it is that you will not have petrol or diesel or those kind of things for your own consumption, because India is 85 to 89% dependent on export of import of these commodities, energy commodities from the Middle East, from the Persian Gulf as well as from Angola and from various other sources. So slog security sounds very anodyne, but when you say that we will be in dire need of energy and we will not have it, then the point is brought, I would say, much harder home. And then Indian Navy's maritime space, till now you have, it's your backyard, you operate wherever you feel like, you plan accordingly. Now if the Chinese ships are more or less always there around the year, permanent presence, then you have to take their presence into account and their capabilities into account, and accordingly you have to change your maritime and naval operational philosophy and doctrine. So all this will have to compel our operational plans and procedures, and we'll have to be prepared to do something like this. And we are already doing it in some way. So that's how it is. And obviously, we have spoken quite a bit about the traditional challenges. Now I'll rush through the non-traditional challenges. Most of them are known to you, but still, since the subject is there, I have classified them into 3 parts. State-supported acts of non-state rogue elements, then man-made maritime security challenges, and the natural calamities and disasters. Natural calamities and disasters are pretty self-explanatory, so I will not spend much time on it during my presentation. So idea is to talk about the first 2 points. And in the overall holistic security challenges graphic, this is the part now we are going to be talking about. We had talked about the traditional challenges. Now we are going to talk about non-traditional challenges. And what I talked about rogue elements is the terrorists and the pirates. And then there are various other man-made threats. that we are talking about: smuggling, human trafficking, IUU fishing, and we will talk about them in very brief. The acts of terror at sea or emanating from the sea and related activities such as gun running and transportation of weapons of mass destruction with or without state support constitute the gravest of the non-traditional security challenges for India. Now, maritime terrorism may be manifested in various ways, and some of the ways that come to mind are written here. If you just see, it talks about infiltration for attacks in the hinterland. This is what the 2611 was all about. They infiltrated from the sea and then attacked in Bombay. Indirect attack on harbors by disrupting safe navigation. If there is a very narrow channel or entrance to a harbor, if you uh, damage the navigational aids or if you sink a ship there in the narrow strait, then the whole channel gets closed. If you remember, I just talked about Visakhapatnam. The channel is so narrow that even if a small boat means of say 1,000 or even 250 tons is sunk there, then all the ships which are inside the harbor remain inside. They get bottled up. They cannot come out. The channel is so narrow. So those are the issues that the terrorists can do something like this, and we have to guard against them. And it's not that it is just a threat. I would say, it just lies in our imagination. There have been instances like this. USS Cole of Almighty US Navy was struck in Aden by a explosive-laden boat in October of 2000. MS Limburg ferry. These are all I would say, terror-related incidents. In Persian Gulf 2010 and Super Ferry 14 in 2004. So, though they happen, I would say they happen quite rarely, but they happen quite rarely because the maritime security is up and about. But one has to be prepared to deal with maritime terrorism. And there can be obviously a link with the piracy, because piracy is the one which gets money. As of now, pirates are supposed to be only pirating the ships for money. But then if they have ideological motive, then it becomes the link of terrorism with piracy. And there is no way to know whether the link, when the link will come up, or already the link exists or not. It is the most, I would say, progressive way of doing it. The next step from piracy is the maritime terrorism. So, and there have been indications before. The maritime wing of LTT had come up in quite a way, and they actually used to attack ships and other maritime targets when the LTT was fully operational. In fact, in 2000, since 2007 onwards, the Americans have been monitoring this particular issue quite closely, because their ships, USS Cole, was hit at that moment. And in one of the depositions by one of the Navy senior officers, this is what he had to say with regard to some intercepted communication of the jihadist website. So what it says, it becomes necessary to develop the battle to include the sea, because as the Mujahideen have managed to form martyr brigades on the ground, possibly they want to form similar brigades at sea itself. So the sea remains the next strategic step towards ruling the world and restoring the Islamic Caliphate. Of course, the concept of Islamic Caliphate was suppressed by a very, very hard hand, but it took a long time to suppress it. But one has to be aware that it was only suppressed. It has not been eliminated totally. So it can raise its head again. And that's where the terrorism from the maritime domain, from, at, or through the sea, can happen again. And we have to, all the nations, including India, have to guard against it. Other man-made challenges: piracy and hostage taking for ransom, armed robbery, drug running, human trafficking, IUU fishing, very common things. Everybody talks about them. But I will flag contraband, smuggling, and transportation of WMD to a certain extent. Natural calamities and disasters, as I said, I will leave for the time being. Though, after the pandemic, like COVID-19 came, there was a huge role for all the navies in the maritime, through the maritime domain, to try and mitigate such things. But then we will, for the time, give it a pass. Piracy in the Gulf of Aden was at its peak between 2008 and 2012. And to ensure that the ships around the Gulf of Aden and across the I would say the coast of Saudi Arabia and Yemeni's coast did not get pirated. The international consortium of countries sent their naval ships. That's where the Chinese started sending 3 ships, and we also have started sending 1 ship. And while the piracy has been controlled to a great extent, or I would say eliminated to a great extent, suppressed to a great extent, eliminated, it can never be eliminated. The effort of this international coalition is quite laudable. So while piracy has been contained to a great extent, the ships continue to remain deployed there. And that is what is of concern to us as to why China continues to deploy 3 ships there, while the piracy is nowhere near its peak during the 2009 to 12 period. So to ensure that the pirates don't take the ship, the transit routes were notified, and the Navy ships used to escort the merchant ships towards east, that is towards India, and from India side, the westbound ships, which are going to Gulf of Aden and then into the Red Sea. Now Red Sea has got different dynamics, so things are more different, but then the transit corridor, as you can see, is well to the sea. And if you can see the figures like 2000, 2000, 2000 marked there, so it is that deep water. The water over there on this track is around 2000 to 2500 meters deep. And it is pretty far away from the coast, because previous transit corridor, the pirates could still come from shore and hijack these ships. Drug threats, mainly 4 or 5 types: heroin, of course, cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. These are the drug routes. You see, heroin production and trade originates from the Golden Crescent area, that is the Afghanistan-Pakistan area, comprising, as I said, and continues to be used to finance terrorism. The Golden Triangle, comprising the Southeast Asian nations, some of them, is another important drug trade and transit route. China is helping out in a big way in proliferating these drugs. And China is also a major producer of the artificial drug called fentanyl, as a lot of people call it is a blue pill, and it is more dangerous than the cocaine and heroin. And one cannot really stop China with hard measures, because the intermediate contents, or say intermediate chemicals which are used to make these drugs, are used to make normal drugs also. So there is always a issue of I would say a issue of gray area, whether the intermediate chemicals are going to be used to make fentanyl, or they are going to be used to make regular drugs. And China is taking advantage of this fact and making it in a big way and supplying it all over the place. The major consumer, of course, is the Northern American continent. IUU fishing, very interesting. This is I would say, a cliche. 1 in 5 fish caught around the world is thought to have originated from IUU fishing. So that is around 20%. And as far as India is concerned, the main area of IUU fishing and poaching of various maritime species is in and around Andaman Islands, and it's not as though it's not happening in the Arabian Sea. But then that is a major area for us. Major area of concern is the Andaman area, because as such, the authorized or the expected potential of these fishing in the Andaman area is not being exploited fully by us, by India. So others are taking advantage of it. And mainly these are Chinese, Taiwanese trawlers. And there are also people from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. So that is an issue of concern. And our agencies are trying to do suitable things, suitable countermeasures, so that IUU fishing can be reduced. Then there is human trafficking, and human trafficking is, I would say, classified into two parts. One is the labor trafficking, of course, is recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision. The catchword here is the through a use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of servitude, peonage. Peonage is like we say peon. Peon is like chaprasi. So forced labor kind of thing. Debt bondage or slavery. And then there is sex trafficking, in which commercial sex act is again induced by same three keywords: force, fraud, or coercion, or by another means if the person or the victim has not attained the age of 18 years of age. Look at the retail value of the transnational crime, and in this case you see uh, this is various other kinds of transnational crimes, some of which are land based, like illegal mining, etc. But if you see just drug trafficking, which is very much got a maritime connotation, human trafficking 150 billion, and IUU fishing 36 billion. 36 billion, 150 billion, and drug trafficking, and some part of other, say, small arms and other trafficking also through the seas. So huge, and this is only 2017 data. I haven't come across this kind of a data from more contemporary times, but I can make an informed guess that it would be more than $2.2 trillion certainly now. So look at the extent that the illegal activities are being monetized, and what is their monetary value, and how much, if these could come in the legal chain, or they could be stopped, how much more prosperous the world would be. This is just to give you a perspective. And then what are the strategies? Now we have seen the traditional threats and non-traditional threats, and we can have, I would say, I have disaggregated the strategies for traditional issues. Same works for the non-traditional issues also. First, you have to accept that the threat exists, then avoiding the threat if it is possible. I mean, if it is existential threat, and if it is not going to uh, be directly affecting you, then you may possibly think of avoiding. But if it is coming directly to you, then avoiding is not an option. And then you try and reduce threat by first monitoring and then controlling. So same thing I have put in words. While acceptance of a risk in maritime warfare is axiomatic, but has to be done, avoidance is rarely feasible. If it is not directed at you, you may think of avoiding, but here we are talking about it is not possible to avoid. Then pragmatism would call for effort to reduce risk through comprehensive monitoring and credible control mechanism. So before monitoring, we'll go other way around. What do you do to control? This is actually a full warfighting gamut of operations. You do anti-submarine warfare operations, you do air defense, you do joint expeditionary mission capability. These are landing joint forces. Mine countermeasure, special operations, joint operational doctrines. But these are just, you should remember that these things are done like this. And rest of it is navies are there and they are doing it. It is enough for you people to know that every country has got their own warfighting strategy depending on their capability and capacity. So India also has these particular strategies for these kind of operations for controlling the traditional threats. You can only control a threat, or you can do something about the threat only when you know where the threat exists. So you have to monitor the threat, how it is evolving, where the threat lies, which direction will the threat move to. So for that, you require technologies for having the maritime domain awareness. Only if you are aware of the maritime domain can you prepare certain mitigating strategies or countering strategies. So for maritime domain awareness, there are various sources uh, for which are used, and some of these sources are put here. The vessels at sea are now tracked institutionally by a national AIS chain. AIS is Automatic Identification System chain. Every ship more than 300 tons and more than 20 meter in length is supposed to have a transponder where it is supposed to transmit a code. And it is not supposed to stop transmitting the code officially. If it stops transmitting the code, means either it is something has gone wrong with the ship, somebody is it is in distress of some kind, or it is undertaking certain operations, certain mission, which is illegal or illegitimate. So by law, every ship is supposed to have its AIS transponder on, but then that is only theoretical. And then there are space-based AIS data, which is tracked from the suitable satellites, which have got receivers. Then coastal radars are tracking in real time because radars are active, they actively transmit and they pick up. But limitation is that you have to be close to the coast. So only when the ships are approaching coast can they be tracked by the coastal radars. Long range information and tracking. This is an international system. White shipping agreement partners share information when the white shipping is basically the merchant ships, legal merchant ships. When their ships sail out, then the destination port knows the route is generally shared. And this is American system, Maritime Security Information System. Various IMO departments or organization also give the information, and there is the ISPS code. So all these are the means or technology is used for creating I would say, detailed MDA picture. And India is also doing its bit. We have a Information Fusion Center for the Indian Ocean region established in Gurgaon in 2018. And it follows a collaborative MDA structure for regional maritime safety and security. We are sharing data with various people. They are sharing data with us. So overall, regional foolproof picture is supposed to be made. And people are generally aware of the maritime domain. And IFC-IOR, as far as this thing is concerned, as part of its international collaborative charter, is also hosting liaison officers from 14 partner nations. They're also learning and they're also picking up information. They are sharing the information with their countries. And so it is quite a collaborative network. The IFC-IOR is also sharing data, as I said, with Information Fusion Center Singapore. There are the Operational Coordination Center Seychelles, in Madagascar. Then there are Djibouti Code of Conduct countries group. They are having their own things, 4 odd centers, one in Kenya, one in Yemen. So 4 of them are there. The data is being shared like this. And then there is this new initiative under the COD. It is called the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness. Aims to harness innovative commercial satellites, radio frequency technology, seeks to provide near real-time information on activities of interest. If you notice, I had talked about the automatic identification system being the primary mode for tracking the ships because the ships are supposed to continue to transmit on that. But what happens if the ship willfully switches off? Then the ship becomes dark, and that is where once the ship becomes dark, it is not getting tracked. Then it can enter into various illegitimate and illegal activities, and it is always in the interest of the states monitoring such ships to know exactly are they going on the track or are they going off track, or if they're going off track, why are they going off track, and what is their intention. That you cannot do because the IS as the primary means is not available anymore. So then you have this radio frequency commercial satellite radio frequency technology, various ways and means wherein other transmissions can be picked up. Being in the Navy or being in the maritime domain, even if you have to talk from the front of the ship, which is called the forecastle, to the rear of the ship, which is called the quarterdeck, you have to use some kind of a walkie-talkie, which works on VHF. If a ship is navigating at sea, it has got its navigation radars on. Some communication is happening. Some transmission is happening all the time in a ship. So the whole aim of IPMDA through the satellite RF technology is to pick up these transmissions or these emissions, RF emissions, and try and correlate them to the last position that a ship went blind or ship went dark, and then try and build some kind of a track to see what this particular ship or a vessel is up to. So there are various ways to plug the information gaps if AIS is off. And then India, being part of the Quad, is also is obviously doing pilot projects to deliver RF data to maritime agencies in Southeast Asia, Indian Ocean region, and the Pacific. One has to just remember that the US is a leader in these technologies. China is trying to get these technologies and work on because it's in an adversarial role. And US being privy to data and being the advanced, I would say, country in this domain, has chosen to keep this data with the private agencies. So it is more commercial as of now, and there have been efforts at the political level between the Quad grouping to uh, get the data for the overall maritime security, I would say, requirements at much lesser cost, because commercially it is very, very costly. As of now, whatever India is looking for getting these data through this RF technology, satellite RF technology, it is going to be very, very costly. Maybe when the pilot projects come through and their viability is seen and effectiveness is seen, then there will be, I would say, better tendency to collaborate with lesser amount of money being involved. As far as the 2611 goes, this is 2611-2008. Each one of you, I'm sure, are aware of what happened in Mumbai. And so that it doesn't happen again, India has taken up the whole task very, very seriously. And since then, if you can see, Sagar Prairie Bell has been made, air and surveillance radars have been enhanced, coastal radars, Coast Guard capabilities have been enhanced to a big way, and coastal radars are there along with the control centers in Mumbai, Visakhapatnam, Cochin, and Port Blair. So now the coastal areas are being very, very well monitored and sanitized, and hopefully the incidents like 2611-2008 will never happen. The navies, by their role, they are supposed to have 4 roles. This is again laid down in India's maritime doctrine of 2009. And one is the combat role. As I said, that combat role is few and far between. One is the diplomacy role, one is the constabulary role, and one is the benign role. So with regard to dealing with the non-traditional threats of certain times, Indian Navy's constabulary role comes to the fore, wherein the main objectives are the coastal defense, security of the exclusive economic zone, the good order at sea, and missions under these things are counterterrorism and policing maritime domains. And further tasks are broken down into counter-infiltration tasks, anti-piracy tasks, anti-poaching tasks, and anti-trafficking tasks. So while this is the constabulary role, the other role which is relevant with regard to the non-traditional threats, this is more in the domain of the natural causes, the threats caused by natural causes, promote civil safety and security, and project national soft power. And HIDR is, in case some of you do not know, it is humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So after a disaster happens, then disaster relief and humanitarian assistance is done by through the sea medium by the Navy, aid to civil authorities, providing of water, providing of electricity connectivity, providing of medicine, medical doctors and other things, providing of tents and sanitation, etc. This is all done after the calamities. And pandemic mitigation, this is I have added. As of now, it is not there in the India's maritime domain, India's maritime doctrine 2009. But now I'm sure people are working to add this because as COVID-19 has shown, navies have huge role with regard to our particular navy picked up evacuated patients from Maldives and Sri Lanka. We delivered stores oxygen. We delivered vaccines to our nearby countries under Mission Sagar. There are 4 Mission Sagar, Sagar 1, Sagar 2. And so there was a lot of pandemic mitigation activities undertaken by the Indian Navy, at the same time keeping itself operationally fit and active also. So this is what is under benign role, but I have not covered the natural causes. We all know it is cyclones and tsunami. But as you can see, we are nearing the end of our lecture, so I did not want to cover this and go over the time. I will finally conclude with this particular picture. This is MV Ruin, and the people we find who are coming down the parachute are the marine commandos. This was a operation by tri-service operation. I want to call it tri-service, okay, joint operation by Air Force and Navy. And on the bottom, you can see a front part that is called forecastle of an Indian Navy ship. These commandos came in this Indian Air Force aircraft. They did water jump along with their fast attack craft. That was also dropped. And this was a ship which is hijacked by pirates. 35 pirates were there on this. They came so far away from shore. This aircraft came here, and look at the coordination. And all this coordination was done by Gurgaon-based IFC IOR, because somebody in the back room must be has to do this coordination so that everybody reaches at more or less the same time, and there are no operational hiccups. So isn't this exactly out of some James Bond kind of movie, or we see various SEAL Team 3 and those kind of things. Even the Americans and the Europeans were quite impressed by the kind of capabilities which we could bring to bear against this pirated ship, and we managed to rescue the hostages, rescue the ship itself, and convict all the pirates, 35 of them, because what option do they have? If they try and take on these marine commandos, this big Indian Navy ship has its big guns to cover them. So this is a particular success story, and there are many success stories like this, but this was the high point of an Indian Navy mission that happened in March of last year. And you can read about this more in the by Googling the incident, MV Ruin incident. And I'm sure you will get to know much more about the capabilities of Indian Navy and the Indian Armed Forces to handle these kind of contingencies. This threat I'm putting in the piracy part, and what we have done with regard to counter-piracy actions. So we have talked about various strategies. So if you talk about the complete, I would say, strategy to address all the traditional and non-traditional challenges, if you put it in aggregate, then our means India's plans to preserve, promote, pursue, and protect each of our maritime objectives in times of peace, tension, and conflict constitute our maritime strategy. And this is laid down, and it is an evolving strategy. So on the right, Indian Navy had released this document, Freedom to Use the Seas, India's Maritime Military Strategy, in 2007. And in 2016, an updated and renewed strategy came out. That is on the left, Ensuring Secure Seas, India's Maritime Security Strategy. Both these documents are available online, and they can be searched. And for those who are interested in knowing more about the Indian Navy and India's maritime capabilities to address various traditional as well as non-traditional threats, these documents can come in very handy. So I will finish with that, and a lot of what I have talked about is again available online on in my own article. It's called Holistic Maritime Security Challenges Facing India, Mitigation Imperatives and Options. And this is available on the National Maritime Foundation site, maritimeindia.org. The link is shown here. So with that, I finished. Now I'm open for any question and answers that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative session and making it easy for us to understand such a complex topic and the real life situations which you have explained. Um, I'll request the participants if you'll have any of the questions, y'all can unmute yourself and go ahead with the questions. Sir is here to answer your queries. Or even if you'll have any comments, y'all can go ahead with it.
So was it covered in a lot of hurry, or people actually don't have any questions?
I believe they must have understood the topic very well. Anybody else? Any? Yeah.
Sir, good
Yes, Mr.
afternoon.
Raut.
Sir, good afternoon. Sir, actually, we have gone through your presentation. One thing I want to highlight that you were mentioned that uh, increase in the sea level, how it can be concerned for maritime security, sir.
So you can unmute yourself. So
Can
you
you
can.
just repeat your question? You're a little cutting off.
Uh, uh, in your presentation, I seen one place that uh, increase in sea level is a maritime security concern. So I want a little bit more deeper in that.
Okay, I think Dr. Ram Boj would have covered it somewhere, or maybe it will be covered subsequently, but notwithstanding, it is pretty much obvious. When the sea level increases, a lot of coastal area gets inundated. And when a coastal area gets inundated, it forces the large scale, people become refugees in their country. Large scale displacement of coastal population happens. As and when the coastal population shifts to some other areas where other people are there, the issues with regard to the social issues get ari- no, get arisen. Now, if it happens in own country, it's fine. But there are certain countries, say Bangladesh, India, have got a common area where the sea level rise in the Sundarbans can create trouble. Then people go to another country. When they go to another country, they become refugees there. And along with the refugees, there are so many other social and political issues come up. And then it becomes a security, I would say, security risk. If it is happening through the maritime medium, then it becomes a maritime security risk. So it's an indirect kind of a thing. Say Maldives, already the projections are that the Maldives is going to go under in 80 years. Now, already the people are concerned, and they are some of them are trying to shift out. And if they are trying to shift out, they are obviously shifting out to some other countries who don't want them. And if there are unwanted people who are coming, then there is hostility between the populations. And when the large numbers are involved, the states have to get involved. When the state gets involved, obviously it has come from the maritime medium, so it becomes a maritime threat. I have not covered the climate change related maritime threats and risks, but I'm sure you would have got the drift, and somebody would cover it in the climate change, I would say, climate change lecture. I don't know if it is planned.
Sir, one more small doubt is there.
Yes.
Actually, we have our luxury islands are very, you can say it is just few centimeter or even meter, you can say,
Yes,
above
they
the
are
mean sea level.
natural
So it,
extension. Maldives
yeah,
is a
yeah.
natural extension of that. Yes.
So it is in that case we have the very great problem in that locality.
Yes, there is certainly going to be a big problem because if you do not have enough elevations, then from natural calamities you cannot save yourself. Forget about the seawater rise or global warming related seawater rise. When tsunami hit the Car Nicobar Island, the high waves went from one side to the other, and virtually everybody who was on that island, including a lot of Air Force people, perished. So those are the maritime security risks. One has to, I would say, take a calculated risk because you cannot create a mountain. You can only be prepared for HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief post the event, because there is no elevation available.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Sneha, I think there is a climate-related global seawater rising, etc., temperature rise, and this somebody will be covering, I'm sure. Mr. Shastri is to cover it.
Yeah, Sasser sir used to cover this. Rambut sir just went through the topic.
However, in the National Maritime Foundation, we have experts on this particular thing. Maybe next time when we are doing the planning of the course, we can involve some of the NMF people who are climate change experts in this
Yes, sir,
domain.
definitely. We can add more speakers to this also. So we have one more question in the chat box.
Chat box.
Says, is India's interest in agriculture mostly about making it its strategic military base to have a strong control over its maritime territories, which spread till those areas? Are there any other strategic reasons?
You have stated the most obvious reason. India, being politically and diplomatically correct, will never say this, but this is very much the reason. Uh, and we actually spent so much of money in the Agalega Islands trying to develop this particular thing. And main issue is that China is developing its so-called far seas maritime domain awareness infrastructure all over the place, and we are going to be running blind. So we are obviously working with our friends, and I won't call it allies. We don't work in the alliance system. Our friends and partners to try and gain access to certain critical maritime infrastructure. Agalega was part of that particular issue, but main issue was that we wanted to, the diplomatically correct answer was that we wanted to create an infrastructure for the use of that particular country so that they could sanitize and they could monitor their EEZ better. Small countries like Mauritius and Seychelles have huge EEZ compared to the capabilities that they have. Capabilities are minuscule. So most of the times, countries like India are trying to help them in a benevolent way, and China is trying to help them, showing that it is benevolent. But the countries, as well as the rest of the world, knows that China's intentions are not always benevolent. So the question itself has the answer, but diplomatically, no track one politician or no government official will tell you this. I am retired for your information.
Any more questions?
It's heartening to know you're from Mauritius. So now you know India's intention.
So I guess since we're not getting any more questions, can we call it a day?
Yes, certainly. It was nice interacting with the students.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative and important topic. And thank you to all the participants for joining here. Our tomorrow's session will be taken up by Sir itself, and the topic is importance of maritime connectivity for national regional economic growth. So the link for tomorrow's session will be shared with you all tomorrow in the morning itself. And I hope everyone be on time so that we can start the session on time. And thank you everyone for being present today. See you all tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, sir.